Back in on DraftKings. How about you, Pete?
I've loved energy for the better part of a year. I'm going to love it this year, too. I think energy's going higher, the XLE.
Off to a great start, up 1 year, 48%. How about you, Steve?
Brother Pete almost talked me out of this final trade. Tilray, it's a very expensive option.
Got that. Pete Najarian?
Sticking with energy, I'm going to give you XOM, ExxonMobil. I think it's going a lot higher with some call buying today.
Okay, Josh Brown.
Alphabet, like it.
And Pete, you are next.
I'm going to give you a target. I think it's at the levels you've got to buy it again, Tyler.
Target. Sticking with the hometown stock. And Jeff, you round it out, brother.
No, when you do something there. And Pete Najarian, I see you at the bottom.
Will do.
Yeah, I'm going to give you Freeport-McMoRan. I like steel, but copper I like even more. So Freeport.
Pete, you bought the Jets ETF calls. You bought some more Live Nation calls. Give me your final trade, though.
Yep. I already own Uber, and I'm trying to buy more, but I'm seeing some huge call buying in Uber February 37, so Uber's my final trade.
Okay, which takes us trades. Pete, lead us off.
I'm going to give you a bunch of energy names. XLE, Baker Hughes, APA, Rig, all of those. Call buying in those. Love it, Scott.
Call buying from you as well. All right, Degas, you're up. Okay, Pete.
Helmrich and Payne.
Farmer Jim.
NXP Semiconductors.
Pete Najarian.
I think crude's still going to triple digits. I love Carter, but I'm going to give you Transocean, RIG.
Steve Grasso.
Left for what we have. Pete Najarian, you first. Names only, please.
Patterson Energy. I'm a buyer.
Kerry. All right, Pete, you get the last words a day.
All right, on Friday, they bought 10,000 Cleveland Cliff calls, the May 23 calls. Those doubled by Monday. Today, they're buying the May 29 calls, 10,000 of them, same price. I think this thing's going to move a lot further to the upside, Scott. I own them.
Like 3 minutes ago. Pete.
Prevagen.
I'm going to give you an ETF, EFA. They're buying a lot of puts out there, Mel. Something's going on. I think it's going lower.
We've all been there, really. Jeff Mills.
Trade, Pete, while I got you.
Yep. Oh, man, you know how I love this energy trade. I saw some rig trading as well, so I'm going to go with Transocean. I think it's going higher.
Okay, thanks for that. Rob Sechin. All right, Pete Najarian.
I'm going to give you K-Web. I just saw a monster buyer in there. I'm now.
Continue.
Okay, Pete.
I'm going to give you CCJ, Chemico. I got to tell you, Scott, uranium stocks are absolutely all over the place. They're buying them. They continue to buy upside. And today we just had some right during the show, 20,000 of the September 35s. It just keeps on going.
Okay.
I think this is going higher.
Michael Farr, quick. Okay, thank you for that. Pete Najarian.
Love Apple, of course, but they're buying the April 1st 170 calls today. 21,000 of those, Scott. I'm in those as well.
What a rebound for that stock, right? Pushing 169.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Josh Brown, final trade.
Yes, sir.
Pete Najarian.
I'm going to give you EQT, not a name we talk a lot about, but natural gas production. I like what I'm seeing in the options right now. I am not in it yet, but I will be pretty soon.
All right. Sarat Sethi.
Uber, partnering with taxi services. I think this is the way to improve cash flow and be cash flow positive in the next couple of quarters.
Big win yesterday in that stock and farm. Who's Fubo? That's you, Pete?
That's me. Yeah, we had some call buying in there. The stock's been absolutely beaten down. And when I see a little bit of that elevation of the call buying, makes me start to think, you know what, scratching my head, I'm going to.
Good to have you back. Pete Najarian.
I'm going to give you Ericsson, Swedish Telecom, Scott. They're buying April 10s again, twice now in the last 3 days.
Okay. Steve Weiss.
I don't want to steal your
Trades for a Friday. Let's go around the horn. Pete, kick us off.
I'm going to give you next tier oil fields, Mel. You don't hear a lot about this name, but NEX, I think it's going higher.
All right. Bono and Ison.
I like it.
When you say feedback.
This week, we're going to see what they deliver. Pete Najarian, what say you?
Continue to see it. Yeah, I continue to see a lot in the energy space. I'm going to give you Energy Transfer, ET. I think this is a name with all that natural gas that Joe and I were talking about earlier in the show. Pipelines everywhere. I think this thing's going higher.
I'll tell you, that nat gas story is something. It's over $8 as we speak, 8.03, according to my machine. Joe, I know you've been watching it closely as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not peak inflation. That looks like surging inflation to me. And now that places the entire
2 to 5 years.
Okay, good stuff there. Pete, you're up.
I'm going to go stick with energy. I'm going to give you a Vistra Corp. So you're talking about power generation here, Scott, electricity. We got a.
Okay, and finally, Pete.
I'm going to give you General Motors, and the reason I say that is not about Farmer Jim. This is about I'm seeing so much buying today. I've had 3 separate monstrous buys in there today. We're looking for this thing to go higher.
All right, good stuff. Got rid of that. Pete, what's your final trade?
I'm going to give you GDX. I've seen a lot of option paper coming in there lately, Scott. It's way down from where it was. I think there's an opportunity for some upside here.
All right, Farmer Jim.
Imaging healthcare products.
Okay, Pete.
Walgreens.
Thank you. And Joe.
An aging automotive industry.
Okay, Pete, is that you at the top there, Best Buy?
Yes, sir. I'll tell you what I did, Scott. I decided to buy the stock, so I did buy stock. It's not options. Whenever somebody lowers their forecast and lowers all this stuff and the stock is basically unchanged, I think that's a stock I want to own. It's very cheap.
What's most interesting is that you don't buy stocks that often. I know everybody knows that, but I don't think they realize how rare it is. The only other stock you bought this year, I said. All right. And finally, Pete.
I'm going to give you Citi. I like all these banks, but I think Citi right now is the most upside.
All right. Good stuff.
Scott, this is one that Pete and I have each been talking about for weeks. ChargePoint, CHPT.
Yeah.
They have been coming in here time and time again. This is the biggest today, though. They bought 90,000 calls out there just at the 15 strike with the stock at $14. That's one of the biggest trades in equities that we've seen in a long, long time. I really don't know what's behind it, but as a surfer, I just kind of run with that wave and try to get on it, Scott. So I'm on ChargePoint.
For this Friday, let's go around the horn. Pete Najarian.
I'm going to give you ChargePoint. Some monstrous activity in there, Mel. I think it's going a lot higher.
Guy Adami.
I'm going to give.
Good, Pete. Why have you?
I'm going to give you Colgate. Saw some upside buying, and it's almost in positive territory. Like seeing that on a day like today.
All right, good stuff. Thank you. Brenda. The fall around the election, too. Pete, what's your final trade here?
I'm going to give you SLV. I saw some call buying in there. I've been waiting to see when they're going to finally come back to silver. They haven't in a long time. They're buying huge calls out there in the August 20 strike, Scott. I'm in those as well.
You are? No gold, Pete. What about the, the minor, junior miners, things you used to buy before?
Yeah, I am long GLD, but that's the only thing I'm long in the, well, that's not true. In the gold space, I actually have one individual, but just with calls. I am not any deeper than that. So I've got a little bit of exposure in gold, but I like seeing the SLV paper just minutes ago hitting. So I was texting and buying that just now.
Yeah. I do want to touch on the NASDAQ one more time, too, because we did give up 11,000 for the first time in quite some time. NASDAQ's down more than 400 points. I understand you got a move you just made, so why don't you start us off with that?
I did, but I legged into it, and here's what I saw. First of all, earlier today, 94,000 of those puts or those calls that were bought just last week in the volatility index. June 8th, they bought them. 50 cents is the nickname of that.
Like a safe place to be.
All right, Pete, you're getting the last word on this one.
All right. Well, I tell you what, you know that I'm a bull in the energy space, but we've obviously had a significant pullback and a little bit of trimming here and there, and I don't have quite as much exposure. But the XLE does make me start to scratch my head a little bit because they're out there buying 68,000 of the October 52 puts. So looking for this to make some sort of a pullback. We'll see what happens, but definitely seeing those huge
Trade. Let's go around the horn. Pete Najarian, what do you say?
All right, I'm going to kick it off with ChargePoint. I love this name. I saw a lot of activity in there just today, Mel. I think it's going higher.
Guy Adami. And Pete Najarian, what do you say?
Well, this is a beautiful tie, number one. But secondly, I'm going to give you AMD. Earlier, I had some had some put buying in there earlier with the 78 strike that expires on Friday. So in the short term, looking for a little bit of.
Pete Najarian.
I'm going to give you a Dish. I think it's bottomed out, and I think it's ready to start rocketing to the upside.